question about the abolition of the Standards Board. The main reason the government have given for its abolition, I think many will be sympathetic to this, is that it's propagated an infinite number of very small, petty accusations, very often not substantiated, which often on a party political basis or some kind of opponent versus opponent basis, which are wasting a lot of time and public money. Now, it's supposed the Standards Board will be abolished, but nevertheless, that where any council, I understand this is at any level, fails to declare a relevant interest, even a personal interest, that will become a criminal offence. Because the principle is excellent, because unfortunately there are those who abuse the system. But if it's going to work at a level of even a person, never mind prejudice or interest, isn't there a risk that Mrs. Jones, aged 82, who's a member of the Parish Council and the PCC, who fails to declare an interest when the Parish Council awards £50 to the Organ Renewal Fund, might go to jail? So that's taking it to ridiculous extremes. But surely there is a risk that actually the same thing will happen as with the Standards Board, that those with local vendettas or political disagreements will raise action under the Act if it becomes law, and cause unnecessary waste of time and problems. So I'd like any of the panel to try and answer that.
John, you're the lawyer.
We were very lucky in Carlisle Standards Board, interestingly enough. We had very, very few such cases, which I think reflects the nature of law since it's part of the world. I spoke as a lawyer first. I would suggest that it's, I welcome the removal of the Standards Board, because I do think it'll get rid of many frivolous cases that were. I think at the end of the day, the court would make a judgment. So if you had the cases, by way of example, that you mentioned, I don't think the court would be particularly interested, because they do look at things in a balanced way and a reasonable way. So I think the issue which you raise is unlikely to come into play. I think we have to get back to being sensible in politics and get away from this micromanagement that we had under the previous regime.
Thank you, John. Question down here, Jim.
Jim Johnson, I've just joined a parish council, Beaumont Parish Council.
He doesn't need a microphone.
The question really is, from a parish council's point of view, who doesn't already have a parish plan, and assuming that we don't join up with anybody else, as in Rough by Sands, which is neighbouring, which has been mentioned as having had very good parish plans and indeed is revising it at the moment. Supposing we don't, supposing we decide to do our own plan, is there for small parish councils such as mine a model questionnaire that can be used to avoid us having recreated the wheel? There is.
Josh, do you want
to write down which to follow?
Yes, there is, and if you talk with ACT, they'll be able to help you with that. And there's lots of resources on the website.
Excuse me, I can't hear you at the back. Is there anything I can do with the mic?
Oh, sorry, it wasn't on. No, sorry about that. Yes, there are models, and if you talk with ACT and go to their website, there's lots of models there. Both the District Council and the County Council work with community planning groups as well, and have an agreement about how they'll resource that. So yes, there is a lot of help available.
Thank you. Next question, please, Pauline.
Pauline Dalton, Dalston Parish Council, and my question really follows on from what Jim said. We're in the process of rejigging ours, and we did suffer, that's the parish plan, but our design statement, we suffered the disappointment of non-acceptance, and that came from Government Office Northwest, and I do so welcome the thought that it would be a locally reviewed system, because I knew from the responses that Government Office Northwest had sent that they didn't have a clue where Dalston was, what it was all about, anything at all. But that's my grumble out of the way. Yes, I would welcome a really clear set of core elements for where these plans will fit in to the local development plan. In really simple terms, because I'm no planner and it would be very helpful. And really linking with Jim, if we, I wonder, I'm really thinking about the importance of a parish plan and a neighbourhood plan. and how important it is that we actually produce, more important is it to produce a neighbourhood plan than a parish plan. You know, what notice will be taken of a small parish plan fitting in with a neighbourhood? I don't think I'm making a great deal of sense here, but you know what I'm saying, Chris.
Thank you, Pauline, yes. Well, I think I know what you're saying. In terms of where we are now and what is proposed in the bill, then the neighbourhood development plans will have far greater weight, and you can do far more than you could in your parish plans and even your village design statement. Now, some of the principles that you were trying to establish through a village design statement may very well be embodied in neighbourhood development orders, because that will set the established principles that you want to see in whatever defined neighbourhood is drawn up. In terms of the parish plans, at the moment the neighbourhood development plans look at the planning elements of location of sites and development. Parish plans covered lots of other things that were locally important as well, and I'm not quite sure at the moment, and we'll see how this moves through, where all those other bits sit into the process, because those are obviously locally important issues that people have raised in your consultations, and you will still want to address them. And to some extent, parish plans for a lot of parish councils have formed a charter for work and how they establish a lot of things that they do, and how that embodies itself through the process. There's something to be evolved, really, and I think it's something maybe that CPCA wants to have a think about as well, as to how the whole package is taken forward.
Joss, would you like to add to that?
Yeah. Is this on?
It's on, yeah.
I think one of the frustrations, one of the many frustrations that parishes have felt in the past with producing their parish plans is that district and county officers haven't necessarily recognised some of the details. The details in them are very specific to those communities. And looking at it from the officer's point of view, they cannot possibly reflect all of those individual details in the implementation of their work. So I think it's very important in the future, when plans are carried out, that there is the level of local officer support that Chris was referring to, particularly within Carlisle but across the county, because otherwise it's going to be impossible to implement the plans, as has been the frustration in the past.
Lorraine, do you want to?
Just a quick addition. All of the community plans that are currently in place across Cumbria have informed the community strategy for Cumbria. So they're actually combined into a database that that the county council pay them to actually put together, and they're actually used in strategic planning purposes. Now, if one community wants one small thing, that obviously isn't going to affect the community strategy for Cumbria, but the information does go in there, so they don't just sink into obscurity. They are actually used and referred to.
Thank you. Next question right at the back, Zoe, please.
Oh yeah, it's Mark Costello from Cumbria CVS. If neighbourhoods that are looking to devise plans are selecting their own boundaries, how can we ensure that they don't exclude more disadvantaged parts of their community?
I'm not sure about that one, actually. Basically, the neighbourhood boundaries have to be developed with the local authorities, and they have to be constituted from the people who actually live in that area and be formed as a proper organisation. So I suspect when a proposal comes forward, there will be a chance to explore exactly whether that is the appropriate area, what it is trying to achieve, and make sure everything's embraced. I think the danger is that if you do get interested parties looking at their own areas and excluding others, it's then up to the local authority to make sure that whatever it plans for the area as a whole and picks up all those potential areas that aren't covered. It's very much like, say, some parish councils don't want to do bits. We won't get full coverage of neighbourhood development plans across the district. That would be really very unrealistic, because some will not want to partake. And the local authority therefore has a duty to make sure that it picks up all those elements to make sure that no one's disadvantaged by what's being proposed in any one area. So there's an element of building in the neighbourhood defined area and checking on that process, but also in the development of any plans anyway. So there's a double safeguard, if you like, in the system.
I'm going to allow two more questions. Now, please remember that John here returns to Westminster on Monday for the second reading of this bill, so you've got a tremendous opportunity to influence the situation. So I'm going to allow two more questions. I've just forgotten, there was somebody, who did I say? Yes, okay. Hazel.
Judith Derbyshire, Cumbria Rural Housing Trust. Sorry. It's a question for John Stevenson. We're going to have a period of time between the Localism Bill coming in and people having done their neighbourhood plans when there could be things sold off, disposed of, because local authorities are needing as much money at the moment to fill their budgets. Is there going to be any sort of moratorium, and when does it start? I'm thinking of things like the Penrith Cinema, which there's a strong concern of it being changed of use. But also, I'm also thinking of land near Ambleside, which is owned by Cumbria County Council, where the community are wanting to work with the council to make sure there's enough affordable housing in the area. So is there going to be a gap when things could disappear before that could come in, all these good things can come into place?
There is actually a very simple answer to that. It is not the law of the land at present, and therefore people can do as they wish under the present legislation. So yes, there will be a gap where if somebody wants to get rid of something before the new rules come in, they will be able to do so. I would anticipate that the bill, assuming it goes through all stages without any hiccups, would probably come in the autumn. So yes, you are right, there is a period when there's little that can be done in those circumstances.
Barry?
Thank you. Barry, Wethel Parish Council, Carl City Council. A lot has been said by all the speakers about referendums. There's been nothing said about the funding for referendums. Where's all the funding come, and is it all from parish precepts?
I think I was talking to John about this at lunchtime. I think it has to be taken as read that the funding for any of these things that parishes might want to do, including referenda, will have to be funded locally, as they are now. I mean, we did our own questionnaire for our parish plan. I know we had some grant aid for the exercise, but we paid for it out of parish council funds. So yes, I think a referenda potentially, even though it's forced on you, will have to be funded locally. I think I'm right in saying.
Yes, just on the question of referenda, I think the slight difficulty there is you need 5% of the electorate before you can get a referendum up and running, and I think that's quite a high threshold, so I don't think we will see that many coming out. Interestingly enough, on elected mayors there have only been something like 30 referendum up and down the country. Part of the reason is because of that high threshold.
I think the other thing about referenda is that I think it's 50 or 60% of the parish has to vote in this. Now, where you've got a parish like Dalston Parish, which is a village with lots of hamlets, Weatherall would do the same, I would imagine. Basically, that referendum covers the whole of that electoral area, which will be very, very difficult to get people to come out and vote in hamlets for something in the core of the village. Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention for this first part of this afternoon. I'd like to thank John Stevenson, who's will not come all that way because he comes up to Carlisle anyway, but giving us a very good introduction to the bill.